Welcome, friends. Today I'm going to tell you a beautiful story about love, family, and second chances. Enjoy the story. Ethan Sinclair stepped out of the sleek black town car, his heart racing with anticipation as he gazed up at the sprawling mansion he had once called home. It had been a year since he had last set foot in the opulent estate, a year spent traveling the world and learning the ins and outs of the restaurant business. But it wasn't just the knowledge he had gained that had changed him. Ethan reached up and touched the smooth skin beneath his eye, marveling at the absence of the large birthmark that had once marred his features. The surgery had been a success, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly confident in his own skin. As he made his way up the winding driveway, the front door burst open, and his parents, William and Grace, rushed out to greet him. "Ethan, my boy!" William exclaimed, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Welcome home, son. We've missed you so much." Grace, her eyes shining with tears of joy, cupped Ethan's face in her hands. "Oh, darling, you look wonderful. The surgery was a success, then?" Ethan nodded, a grin spreading across his face. "It was, Mom. I feel like a new man." As they made their way inside, William clapped Ethan on the shoulder. "Well, now that you're back, it's time to discuss your future in the family business. Your mother and I have been eagerly awaiting your return." Ethan hesitated, his excitement fading slightly. "Actually, Dad, I've been thinking about that. I want to start at the bottom, work my way up in the restaurant just like anyone else. I don't want any special treatment just because I'm your son." William and Grace exchanged a glance, their expressions a mix of pride and concern. "Are you sure, darling?" Grace asked softly. "It won't be easy, starting from scratch like that." Ethan nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I'm sure, Mom. I want to earn my place, not have it handed to me." William stroked his chin thoughtfully, then nodded. "All right, son. If that's what you want, I have an idea. Our restaurant, Birch, has been struggling lately. The administrator, Luke, is a bit of a handful, and the place could use some fresh blood. Why don't you start there, as an assistant administrator? You can learn the ropes and help turn the place around." Ethan's eyes lit up, a thrill of excitement coursing through him. "That sounds perfect, Dad. When do I start?" Ethan stood outside Birch, his heart pounding with nerves as he gazed up at the faded sign above the door. The restaurant had seen better days, its once gleaming facade now dull and weathered. As he pushed open the door and stepped inside, he was greeted by a cacophony of noise and activity. Waiters rushed past, balancing trays laden with steaming plates of food, while diners chattered and laughed at the crowded tables. "Can I help you?" a brusque voice asked, and Ethan turned to see a tall, wiry man with a pinched expression staring at him. "I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand. "The new assistant administrator." The man's eyes widened, and he quickly shook Ethan's hand. "Ah, yes, of course. I'm Luke, the administrator. Welcome aboard." As Luke led him through the restaurant, pointing out the various stations and introducing him to the staff, Ethan couldn't help but notice the strained atmosphere. The employees seemed tense and on edge, their smiles forced and their movements hurried. "As you can see, we run a tight ship here," Luke boasted, gesturing to the bustling dining room. "Birch is the most successful restaurant in the area, and it's all thanks to my leadership." Ethan frowned, his gaze falling on a young waitress who was struggling to balance a heavy tray. "Are you sure about that, Luke?" he asked carefully. "The place seems a bit chaotic." Luke's eyes narrowed, and he opened his mouth to retort, but before he could speak, a crash echoed through the restaurant. The waitress had dropped her tray, sending plates and glasses shattering to the floor. "Kayla!" Luke snapped, storming over to the young woman. "What the hell do you think you're doing? That's coming out of your paycheck." Kayla, her face flushed with embarrassment and frustration, started to apologize, but Luke cut her off. "I don't want to hear it. Just clean up this mess and get back to work." As Luke stalked away, Ethan approached Kayla, his heart aching with sympathy. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Kayla looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm fine," she said, her voice trembling. "It's just, the ingredients we're using are so bad, the plates are too heavy, and Luke, he's always yelling at us. I don't know how much longer I can take it." Ethan's jaw clenched, a spark of anger igniting in his chest. "Don't worry," he said softly. "Things are going to change around here. I promise." Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into his work at Birch, determined to uncover the root of the restaurant's problems. He spent long hours in the kitchen, observing the cooks and tasting the dishes, and even longer hours poring over the books, trying to make sense of the restaurant's finances. But it was his budding friendship with Kayla that truly opened his eyes to the struggles of the staff. As they worked side by side, washing dishes and prepping ingredients, Kayla began to open up to him about her life. "I've been working here for 2 years," she said, her voice low as they scrubbed pots in the steamy kitchen. "At first, it was just a job, a way to make ends meet. But now, I don't know. I feel like I'm trapped here." Ethan nodded, his heart aching with understanding. "I know what you mean. Sometimes it feels like the walls are closing in on you, like there's no way out." Kayla glanced up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "You do? But you seem so put together, like you have it all figured out." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. "Hardly. I may look different on the outside, but inside, I'm just as lost as anyone else. I spent years hiding behind my birthmark, letting it define me. It wasn't until I finally faced my fears and had it removed that I started to find myself." Kayla's face softened, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "I had no idea. That's really brave of you, Ethan, to face your fears like that." Ethan shrugged, a blush creeping up his neck. "It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. And now I want to help others find their own courage. Starting with this restaurant." Kayla's smile faded, her expression growing serious. "Speaking of courage," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "there's something I need to tell you. About Luke." Ethan leaned in, his brow furrowing with concern. "What is it, Kayla? You can tell me anything." Kayla took a deep breath, her hands twisting in her lap. "A few months ago, Luke, he made a pass at me. He cornered me in the storage room, tried to kiss me. I pushed him away, but he wouldn't stop. I was so scared, Ethan. I didn't know what to do." Ethan's stomach clenched, a wave of fury washing over him. "Kayla, I'm so sorry. That's unacceptable. Luke had no right to do that to you." Kayla nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "I know, but I was afraid to say anything. Luke, he has so much power here. I didn't want to lose my job." Ethan reached out and took her hand, his heart breaking for the pain she had endured. "You won't lose your job, Kayla. I won't let that happen. I promise. I'm going to make things right. For you and for everyone else here." Kayla looked up at him, her eyes shining with gratitude and something else, something deeper. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered. "Thank you for being my friend." Ethan squeezed her hand, a warmth spreading through his chest. "Always, Kayla. Always." As Ethan and Kayla grew closer, she began to share more of her life outside of the restaurant. One day, as they were walking home from a long shift, she turned to him with a hesitant expression. "Ethan, there's someone I want you to meet," she said, her voice soft. "Someone who I think you'll understand better than anyone." Ethan nodded, curiosity piqued. "Of course, Kayla. Who is it?" Kayla led him down a narrow alley, the buildings looming high on either side. As they turned a corner, Ethan's eyes widened at the sight before him. A young boy, no more than 10 years old, sat huddled against the wall, his clothes tattered and dirty. But what struck Ethan most was the large birthmark that covered half of the boy's face, a mirror image of the one that had once marred his own skin. "This is Mason," Kayla said softly, kneeling down beside the boy. "He's been living on the streets for months now, ever since his parents abandoned him." Ethan's heart clenched, a wave of empathy washing over him. He crouched down, offering the boy a gentle smile. "Hi, Mason. I'm Ethan. It's nice to meet you." Mason looked up at him, his eyes wary and guarded. "Hi," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. Kayla rested a hand on Mason's shoulder, her expression tender. "Mason comes by the restaurant sometimes, looking for food. I've been trying to help him as much as I can, but he needs more than just a meal here and there." Ethan nodded, his mind already racing with ideas. "Mason, How would you feel about coming to stay with me for a while? I have a big apartment, plenty of room for a growing boy like you." Mason's eyes widened, a flicker of hope sparking in their depths. "Really? You'd let me stay with you?" Ethan grinned, ruffling the boy's hair. "Of course, buddy. No one should have to live on the streets, especially not a brave kid like you." Mason's face split into a wide smile, his birthmark crinkling with the force of his joy. "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you so much." As they walked back to Ethan's apartment, Mason's hand clutched tightly in his own. Ethan felt a sense of purpose settling over him. He had been given a second chance at life, a chance to make a difference, and he knew, with a certainty that rang through his very bones, that he would stop at nothing to give Mason the same chance. The next morning, Ethan woke early, his mind already buzzing with plans for the day ahead. He padded into the living room, smiling at the sight of Mason curled up on the couch, his face peaceful in sleep. As he started the coffee maker and began whipping up a batch of pancakes, Ethan's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He glanced at the screen, his heart skipping a beat when he saw his father's name. "Hi, Dad," he said, cradling the phone against his ear as he flipped a pancake. "What's up?" "Ethan, my boy." William's voice boomed through the speaker. "I just wanted to check in, see how things are going at Birch. Your mother and I are so proud of you taking on this challenge." Ethan's chest swelled with warmth, a smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks, Dad. It's been eye-opening, to say the least. The restaurant has a lot of potential, but there are some big changes that need to be made." William hummed, his tone thoughtful. "I had a feeling that might be the case. Your mother and I have been discussing it, and we think it might be time for a change in leadership at Birch. Someone with fresh ideas, a new perspective." Ethan's heart raced, a thrill of excitement and trepidation coursing through him. "What did you have in mind, Dad?" William chuckled, the sound warm and knowing. "You, son. We want you to take over as manager of Birch. It's time for you to step up, to show the world what you're capable of." Ethan's breath caught in his throat, his mind reeling with the magnitude of the offer. "Dad, I don't know what to say. Are you sure I'm ready for this?" "Ethan, I've never been more sure of anything in my life," William said, his voice firm with conviction. "You have a heart of gold, son, a compassion and a drive that can't be taught, and that's exactly what Birch needs right now." Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes stinging with sudden tears. "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down. I know you won't, son. Your mother and I are behind you, every step of the way." As Ethan hung up the phone, he turned to see Mason standing in the doorway, his eyes wide with wonder. "Ethan, are those pancakes?" Ethan laughed, the sound bright and joyful. "They sure are, buddy. Come on, let's eat. We've got a big day ahead of us." Ethan stood before the assembled staff of Birch, his heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. He had called the meeting first thing that morning, determined to set a new course for the struggling restaurant. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice ringing out strong and clear. "As some of you may know, I am Ethan Sinclair, and I will be taking over as manager of Birch effective immediately." A murmur rippled through the crowd, faces turning to each other in surprise and confusion. Luke, standing at the back of the room, looked as if he had swallowed a lemon, his face twisted with barely contained fury. "I know this may come as a surprise to some of you," Ethan continued, his gaze sweeping the room. "But I assure you, I am here to help. I have spent the past few weeks observing the restaurant, getting to know each and every one of you, and what I have seen has both inspired and concerned me." He took a deep breath, his eyes locking with Kayla's across the room. She nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth, and Ethan felt a surge of strength flow through him. "Birch has the potential to be something truly special," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "A place where people come not just for a meal, but for an experience. A place where they feel welcomed, valued, and cared for. But to achieve that, we need to make some changes." He held up a hand, forestalling the worried murmurs that began to rise from the crowd. "I'm not talking about layoffs or budget cuts. I'm talking about investing in our people, in our product, and in our community. We will be sourcing higher quality ingredients, implementing new training programs, and creating a work environment that is safe, supportive, and respectful for all." His gaze flicked to Luke, who was glowering at him from the back of the room. Effective immediately, Luke Donovan is no longer employed by Birch. His behavior towards the staff has been unacceptable and will not be tolerated under my leadership. Luke's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment, but before he could say a word, Ethan pressed on. In his place, I am promoting Kayla Summers to the position of assistant manager. Kayla has shown incredible dedication, compassion, and leadership during her time here, and I have no doubt that she will excel in this new role. Kayla's eyes widened with shock and gratitude, tears springing to her eyes as the room erupted in applause. Ethan smiled at her, his heart swelling with pride and affection. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice ringing out over the din. "Together, we will make Birch the best restaurant in town, a place where everyone feels like family. Let's get to work." As the staff dispersed, chattering excitedly amongst themselves, Ethan made his way over to Kayla, his smile widening with each step. "Congratulations, Kayla," he said, pulling her into a tight hug. "You deserve this." Kayla hugged him back, her face splitting into a wide grin. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything. I can't believe this is happening." Ethan pulled back, his hands resting on her shoulders as he looked into her eyes. "Believe it, Kayla. You are an incredible person and an even better leader. I couldn't do this without you." Kayla's cheeks flushed pink, her eyes sparkling with joy and something deeper, something that made Ethan's heart skip a beat. "Ethan, She started, her voice soft and hesitant. "I don't know how to thank you, for believing in me, for giving me this chance." Ethan shook his head, his thumb brushing gently across her cheek. "You don't have to thank me, Kayla. You earned this, all on your own, and I couldn't be more proud of you." Kayla's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat as Ethan leaned in closer, his forehead resting gently against hers. "Kayla," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I know this might seem sudden, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. You've become so much more than just a friend to me. You're my partner, my confidant, my—" He swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. "My everything. Kayla, will you marry me?" Kayla's eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she reached up to cup Ethan's face. "Oh, Ethan," she breathed, her voice choked with emotion. I love you so much, but are you sure? We come from such different worlds, and Ethan silenced her with a gentle kiss, his lips soft and tender against hers. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you, Kayla, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me." Kayla let out a watery laugh, her arms winding around Ethan's neck as she kissed him back, pouring all the love and joy and gratitude she felt into the embrace. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes shining with happiness. "Yes, Ethan, I will marry you." 3 years later. Ethan paced anxiously outside the locker room, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Mason's big boxing match was about to start, and he had promised the young man that he would be there to cheer him on. But as he glanced down at his phone for the 100th time, Ethan felt a flicker of worry. Kayla was supposed to meet him here an hour ago, but she was nowhere to be seen. He had tried calling her, but the phone had gone straight to voicemail. Just as he was about to give up and head inside, his phone buzzed with an incoming text. Ethan's eyes widened as he read the message, his heart leaping into his throat. "Ethan, it's time. The baby is coming. I'm at the hospital now. Please hurry." Ethan's mind reeled with shock and elation, his feet already moving towards the exit. He had known that Kayla was due any day now, but he hadn't expected it to happen quite so suddenly. As he raced towards the hospital, his heart pounding with each step, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. 3 years ago, he had been a lost soul, struggling to find his place in the world. But now he had a thriving business, a loving wife, and a son who looked up to him as a father figure. And now he was about to become a father himself, to welcome a new life into the world. A life that he and Kayla had created together, a testament to the love and strength of their bond. As he burst through the hospital doors, Ethan's eyes frantically scanned the waiting room, searching for any sign of Kayla. A nurse approached him, a knowing smile on her face. "Mr. Sinclair?" she asked, her voice gentle. "Your wife is in room 302. She's been asking for you." Ethan nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He followed the nurse down the hallway, his heart hammering in his chest as he pushed open the door to Kayla's room. And there she was, looking tired and sweaty and absolutely radiant, cradling a tiny bundle in her arms. Ethan felt his breath catch in his throat, tears springing to his eyes as he crossed the room in 2 quick strides. "Kayla," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. I didn't know." Kayla shook her head, a soft smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "It's okay, Ethan. You're here now, and there's someone I'd like you to meet." She shifted the bundle in her arms, revealing a tiny, wrinkled face, eyes squinted shut against the bright lights of the hospital room. Ethan felt his heart swell with love and wonder, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch the soft, downy cheek. "Ethan, meet your daughter," Kayla murmured, her eyes shining with tears. "Lily Grace Sinclair." Ethan let out a watery laugh, his vision blurring with tears as he leaned in to press a gentle kiss to his daughter's forehead. "Hello, Lily," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm your daddy, and I promise I'm going to love you and protect you and cherish you for the rest of my life." Kayla reached out and took his hand, squeezing it tightly as they gazed down at their daughter, marveling at the miracle they had created together. "We did it, Ethan," she whispered, her voice soft with wonder. "We made a family." Ethan nodded, his heart too full for words. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, that there would be challenges and obstacles to face. But with Kayla by his side, and their children to love and guide, he knew that they could weather any storm. And as he sat there in that hospital room, cradling his newborn daughter and holding his wife's hand, Ethan knew that he had finally found his true purpose in life: to love, to nurture, and to lead with a heart of gold. 5 years later. Ethan stood at the podium, his heart swelling with pride as he looked out over the sea of faces before him. It was the grand opening of Birch's newest location, a gleaming beacon of hope and opportunity in the heart of the city. As he began to speak, his voice ringing out strong and clear, Ethan couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. 10 years ago, I was a lost soul, he said, his eyes misting with emotion, struggling to find my place in the world, hiding behind a birthmark that I thought defined me. But then, I met a woman who changed everything, a woman who saw past my scars and into my heart, a woman who taught me what it means to love and to be loved in return. He glanced over at Kayla, who was sitting in the front row, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Beside her sat Mason, now a strapping young man of 18, and little Lily, her face alight with pride and excitement. Together, we built something special, Ethan continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. A restaurant that wasn't just about food, but about family, about creating a place where everyone felt welcomed, valued, and cared for. And now, we're taking that vision to the next level, expanding our reach and our impact, and creating even more opportunities for those who need it most. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd, taking in the faces of his staff, his investors, and his loved ones. None of this would have been possible without the incredible team that stands behind me, he said, his voice thick with gratitude. The men and women who have poured their hearts and souls into making Birch what it is today, and of course my amazing wife Kayla, who has been my rock, my partner, and my guiding light through it all. Kayla blew him a kiss, her face glowing with love and pride. Ethan felt his heart swell with emotion, his eyes stinging with tears as he looked out over the crowd once more. So today, as we cut the ribbon on this new chapter in the Birch story, I want to say thank you, he said, his voice ringing out strong and clear. Thank you for believing in us, for supporting us, and for helping us create something truly special. Together, we will continue to grow, to thrive, and to make a difference in the lives of everyone we touch. As the crowd erupted in applause, Ethan stepped down from the podium, his heart full to bursting with love and gratitude. He gathered his family into his arms, hugging them tightly as tears of joy streamed down his face. And as they stood there together, basking in the glow of their shared accomplishment, Ethan knew that he had finally found his true calling in life: to lead with compassion, to love without reservation, and to make the world a little bit brighter, one day at a time.